Brought to you by Mint Mobile. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joire, and today is Friday, January 17th, 2025. I've got the lovely Judie here with me. Hi, Judie of Gear Diary. How are you?
Hi, Miriam. It's so nice to be here with you.
I'm super happy to have you on because I know you've been using the OnePlus 13 for quite a while, and so have I. We talked about it on my CS podcast, but I think we had to be very abridged. I also kind of want to know what your CS was like. But before we start, I want to remind my audience, because I think a lot of you don't know this, because I always make the announcement at the end, but you can get a video version of this podcast and see our lovely faces and see us brandish devices, right? Like this OnePlus 13, like that. But there you go. There you have it too. And my point is that it's on my Patreon. So you have to go to my Patreon, patreon.com/TNKGRL, like Tanker, like my usual social media handle. And then at $5 a month is the tier for that. It gets you every podcast. You get one a week. You get it a day in advance. So you actually get to hear and watch the podcast a day in advance. And for $5 a month. So please consider supporting me with Patreon. And I'm just putting it out because I think a lot of you don't listen to the very end of the podcast, which is fair because it's the outro, blah, blah, blah. Who cares, right? Skip to the next podcast. Totally get it. So just be mindful. If you can support me, that would be great. And if not, there's other tiers there. There's some free tiers, whatever. Check it out. So patreon.com/Tankgirl. That's patreon.com/TNKGRL. All right, let's dive into it. OnePlus 13. What do you think, Judie? What is you like? You've used it for what, 2-3 weeks now, like me, right?
It's been a little bit longer than that. My review is delayed because of CES, which,
Of course.
I mean, we had 45 articles ready to go, and it was like that meant everything else was on hold. But I have to tell you, it is one of the best Android phones I have ever used. I'm so excited about this phone, and I'm really looking forward to digging into it for the review next week. But just the general use of it, the fit and finish, the way it feels in my hand, the fantastic screen, I have nothing negative to say. Takes great photos.
It's funny because I kind of feel the same way. Like I feel like this is almost the perfect phone. The only thing that would make it even more perfect for me was Pixel software. But that's because I'm an addict, right? I'm totally an addict.
I know,
right?
I know.
But it's interesting to me that a lot of the reviews I'm reading, like, my review went up on embargo time. I wrote it before CS. It was a nightmare to get everything done, as you know, as a one-person show.
Yes.
Well, 2 persons
Yes.
with my producer,
Yes.
who was very helpful.
Yeah.
But you know how hard it is. You're in that boat right now. And so my point is that I've caught up and read some of the reviews and watched some of the videos, and I'm like, are we using the same phone, people?
I agree. I looked at some of the titles of some of the reviews were out there, when I realized that we were going to talk about this. And one of them was just so disparaging. And I was just like, what are you judging this against? Why are you not happy? It's like, I get an iPhone user being like, oh, it can't do whatever. But it's like, if you're using an Android phone, this ticks just about every box. It's got a great camera. And obviously there are some phones with better cameras. However, for the US market, okay, sticking purely with that, I've been very pleased with it.
I agree. And I think, one of the couple of things I've seen that made me go like scratch my head was see people complain about the price. I'm like, come again? Like compared to every other flagship, just on specs
exactly.
alone, right? Like
Yes.
You look at Galaxy S24, I know 25 is coming up soon, but right now it's 24. You look at that. You look at Pixel 9 series. You look at iPhone. Well, we're not going to limit the iPhone because that's a different experience, right? And the
Right.
iPhone is $799. You're going to say, well, yeah, but it's not really $799 because $799 if you don't
Base
get a carrier
model.
thing, right? And then it's
Well, yeah.
$839 or something. And then you get less storage and you don't have telephoto. So, you need to go to the Pro.
Right.
And then immediately it's $999. And then, the other thing is like every phone went up $100 respectively.
Right.
Like S24 Ultra from S23 Ultra went up 100. And I think
Right.
you can compare this phone to S24 Ultra. I think the camera is solid enough that it's not S24 Plus. Like, size, it's S24 plus, on
Right.
paper specs, but I think in actuality, it's more like an Ultra. And then the other thing I think that people are not like talking about is like, same with Pixel. To get the same amount of storage on an XL Pixel 9 Pro, like the large one,
Right.
because you have to match the screen size, you
Right.
immediately are $100 over. So that's kind of my beef. My beef is like, some people compare price. I'm like, where are you coming from? This is the most bang for your buck on the flagship Android scene in North America. Then
Agreed.
if you want to go cheaper, there's the 13R, which is
Right.
incredible for the money, right?
It's a great phone. Yes.
So now, the other thing people are complaining about, and I want your thoughts on this, is like, even Nick in my podcast last week at CS was like, yeah, the camera. And I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. This is the second, maybe third time, if you count the Open, where OnePlus is literally at 99% of the performance of camera of a Pixel, of an iPhone, over a Samsung Galaxy. Like, where,
Agreed.
like, yeah, low light isn't, I'm sorry, but it's a different vibe in low light because of the color science. I think people who are knocking low light on the OnePlus 13, I think they're not looking at their photos very well, because
I
like,
want to
did you
say
feel that
something
way?
too, though. The zoom
The
on this.
zoom.
Okay, so stop. While I was at CES, Caleb and I were sitting outside a hotel after a meeting, and they had this media lounge right outside with like glass beads and little fire pits and things and trees wrapped in lights. And so Caleb is reviewing the Vivo, I think it's the 200 Pro.
Yeah.
Did I get that right? Yeah. Since I don't have it in hand, I'm like, I can't remember. But in any case, that phone I felt took slightly better pictures than the OnePlus. I had the iPhone 16 Pro Max with me. And so I would take photos of like the glass beads in the deal and zoom it as far as it would go. And it would like blank out when I got above a certain zoom. You know how you can turn the little slider and like really keep going? Well, on the
Yeah.
OnePlus, I was able to get incredible detail. And I'll admit, Caleb's phone blew it away just a little bit. But the difference between the iPhone and the OnePlus in Zoom just was like, dang, okay. I mean, I don't think you can say when you're comparing apples to apples, not oranges to oranges, that the camera is not one of the best that we've got available to us in the US, period.
And that's exactly my point when I say that you can really not only compare this to the S24 Ultra, because,
Yeah.
In terms of zoom performance, it's amazing. It's amazing
Yes.
for a 3x telephoto is what I'm saying. And yes,
Yes.
Vivo X200 Pro, like the previous 100 Pro and the 100 Ultra, were very well, like they set the bar for what telephoto can be with that 200 megapixel
But not
sensor.
available in the US.
Correct,
So
correct.
in the end,
And ultimately,
cares?
if you compare the Vivo to any non-US phones, you have to compare it to what I was trying to say, the Find X8 Pro, which
Right.
is better because it has an extra 6x telephoto than the OnePlus 13. The 13
Right.
is not a Pro or Ultra phone on paper. It
Right.
only has one telephoto. So,
right.
and you say the Vivo only has one telephoto, but the Vivo's telephoto is totally on steroids, and
Yeah.
they've focused on that. It's clearly they're
Steroids. It's
focusing.
on crack. Are you kidding me?
I know. Like they're focusing on telephoto on the Vivo, but OnePlus didn't say like this is a camera with a telephoto. They said it's a camera that's a Swiss Army knife, and I feel that's true. And
Yeah.
going back to the light, yes, in absolute, the light performance is worse than a Pixel because of the algorithms. I don't know if it's worse than a Galaxy, though. I don't think it's worse than an iPhone. So that's kind of where I'm like, where are you seeing? There's a difference. It does amplify light a little too much in some places, but I also feel that in other scenes I've shot, it's actually giving me lots of shadows and darkness, which is what I would expect, which is what my eyes see. So
Right.
I'm not sure how you feel about the low light stuff, because the zoom, we're all clear. It's amazing for zoom,
Yes.
right?
Low light has not disappointed me. So, I'm looking like, obviously if you're taking a photo in a darkened room, the pixel is always going to be excellent. But when you're taking photos of things like neon signs, sometimes the pixel has let me down, at night, neon signs, things like that. And the OnePlus has done a really good job with that. So it's, again, compare apples to apples. They're different cameras, everything else. But I feel that for the money and for what you get and the amount of memory, it's like if it's your phone first, if it's your communication device, it's a great size. It's a great, for reading, for texting, for doing all of those things. But when you get into the camera, I think that it just really shines. So
Yeah.
as you can probably tell, it'll be a very positive review. I really like the phone. And again, the fact that they moved from that curved screen, which I really hated on the last version, this being, just the barely beveled edges where it's not
the screen itself
screen.
is perfectly flat. It's just the glass
Perfect.
is 2.5D, and it actually makes, again, I think it's important that the audience understands that this phone, the OnePlus 13, is a Find X8 Pro without the extra telephoto and with a different chipset. Physically, they are identical. Like the size, the thickness, the way they're built. The camera positioned slightly differently, but you look at even the openings, the button placement there, and what else is like that? The Realme GT7 Pro, the flagship from Realme. Now, it has more cameras specs that match the Find X8 non-Pro, which is a little detuned, but it's interesting that physically the screen, the chassis, the way the 2.5D on both sides of the glass, we have the we have the vegan finish, but if it was glass on the glass models, it's also 2.5D, and that finish but even band of aluminum all the way around. That makes the phone feel so much better in hand, and you don't lose.
It feels so premium, yes.
And you don't lose that flat display goodness that we all prefer, right?
Right, exactly.
And especially swiping gestures, like it's amazing. And so I think, a lot of other phones, and like even the 13R, a lot of these phones now are slab-sided iPhone copies. And I don't like that as much. Like it... I feel like you have to put the iPhone in a case for it to feel right.
I agree, because the iPhone has very sharp sides. But I'm one of the few, perhaps, that do like a flat-sided phone. So I'm not mad. I'm not mad that OnePlus is giving us that premium experience, in their Android phone. So, there's things you can probably fault it for, like the fact that every Chinese maker seems to have now the round. I don't know what's going on with that. There are a few that are going for other shapes and things, but it's like, how many phones right now have the huge round camera module on the back? And it's like...
Most Chinese flagships, yes.
Yes. And so it bugs me a little bit that there's not like a big standout, like, the Pixel has its bar, the iPhone has its cube. And, and I feel like one of the phones that we're going to talk about is kind of ripping off the iPhone's camera module style. But it's like, I don't know. It's like, it's nice. It looks like a camera. It'd be fun to like have a camera case, right? Where this is the lens. But it's like, give me something that stands out. That's my only complaint. And it's such a little quibble that I almost feel guilty even bringing it up. It's like, okay, it's a round camera module.
Yeah, I like them round because they look like cameras. So yeah, I don't mind so much. I think that I'd rather have that than the iPhone squircle thing. But if I have to pick one that's I prefer overall, I think the current Pixel, especially the new one with the Pixel 9, where it's separate now. It's not like falling onto the edges anymore.
Yeah.
That bender style, perfectly oval pill shape. That I think they've nailed it, and I hope they don't go away from that design. We hear that I
agree.
Pixel 9a is gonna have a flat back where the camera is flush, and they're gonna get rid of the visor. And even to me, if they had just painted or put a piece of glass to kind of suggest the visor, it would be better from like you can recognize it as a Pixel on the streets, right? Like, and I think that they're moving away from that for whatever reason. But Google always makes the worst decisions, and as you know, Stockholm syndrome. I'm an all hostage with them. So, I'm a Pixel fan for better or for worse. But
I
honestly,
understand, and I was for years. It's hard to quit some of those special Pixel features. I get it.
I mean, for me, if this had call screening, like just the call features, I don't care about anything else, honestly, at this point. Like, I prefer the user interface of the camera on the OnePlus. I hate what they've done with the Pixel camera, where you have that toggle between camera and video. I hate that. I think it sucks. I think that there's a lot of room for improvement there. I do think that the Pixel and maybe the iPhone, but Samsung arguably potentially are more consistent in camera.
Mm-hmm.
But we've said this for years, and the gap is so much shorter now. Like it used to be, you got a Chinese phone and the photos were great, but sometimes a miss, and you couldn't always rely on them. And now I feel like that's a non-issue. Like I think this phone, you can just mash the camera button and get a great photo every time. Is it as good as mashing the camera button on a Pixel? Well, it depends. I think that again, the Pixel is slightly more consistent, but we're starting to nitpick here. Like that's kind of where I'm at with this.
We are, but I will say one more thing about the Vivo that Caleb is reviewing. Caleb is always the first to say that he's like not a photographer, but he wants to be able to take photos,
Right.
And so Caleb was just playing around with his Pixel. I believe he either has an 8 or a 9. I'm sorry, I can't remember.
It's fine.
Playing around with his Pixel, and he just took a picture of like a Coke bottle, some drink bottle, and it was fine. And then just taking a picture of the Coke bottle with his Vivo, and it was sharp, low light, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sharp and had depth. And just looked incredible. And this is not something most people would take a photo of, but he was blown away. And when he showed me the photos compared between the two phones, I was like, wait, what? Was your lens dirty on the Pixel? Because it was that stark of a difference. And he's like, no, So I just want to say that, and that's a Leica camera too, right? On the Vivo?
Yeah.
So,
Zeiss,
whatever they're doing, or Zeiss, thank you.
Yeah.
Zeiss. So I knew it was one of the big ones, but we have Hasselblad on the OnePlus. So it's the cameras. I think that the manufacturers know how important it is to us. And I think that the co-branding with some of these bigger names, gives it some panache.
Yeah.
But it's sometimes shocking to see the difference between, what we think is good. And then we see a camera from another country, that's not necessarily available here and what it can do. And it's just like, dang, we're missing out. Where's our competition?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think for the price, like, looking at those things, design is solid. You got IP68 finally and 69 now. So you
69.
can put it in dishwasher. I know it's a little bit of a marketing thing, but hey, I'd rather them play the marketing game than not have an IP certification like they did for years, right?
Agreed, yes.
And even some of the mid-range phones we're going to talk about today have IP69 now. So it's actually becoming a thing. The other thing that's becoming a thing, and this has been a trend for about a year now, a year and a half, 2 years, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, is that 6,000 milliamp hour battery in the OnePlus 13 seems really surprising to a lot of people, but China has been going that route. They've had silicon carbon
6,000,
anodes.
65.
Yeah. They've had silicon carbon anodes for a while now on their phones, which are making these phones basically the batteries bigger capacity, smaller form factor, thinner, which means that they either make the phone slightly thinner, like this OnePlus 13 is thinner than the 12, or they put the same thickness phone and they put more battery. So we've got some mid-range phones in China with 7,200 milliamp hours now. Like, and my point is that's like, nobody's really talking, like a few articles, a few reviews are like, oh, battery life is really good. But a lot of them are like, yeah, so it's got a big battery, but they don't talk about the 100 watt or 80 if you use it in North America and with 120 volt charging, and then talk about the 50 watt wireless. Now, one thing that I agree with the critics strongly is that it should have the magnets built in for MagSafe or Qi 2.
Right.
That is a bummer that you have to get a case for it. And I don't understand really where they're coming from, but again, this is Oppo.
I'm just glad though that you can use a case and get that same, that MagSafe feel with your phone, especially if you have, those device holders in your car and things like that. I mean, I charge my OnePlus on my MagSafe charger all the time, and it's just convenient, of course, 100%. With the case on. So it's nice to see them making it more democratic. Exactly.
And what I was trying to get to is that Oppo BBK Group is really doing this across the board. It's like the Find X8 series has this. And so, a lot of people I don't understand OnePlus. They're like, you have to just rewind to December, November, when the Find X series came out. This is why it's so important for us to cover these Chinese phones, because they are a very strong predictor of what we're going to get. And and again, as I said, the OnePlus 13, other than the Snapdragon 8 Elite in there, is, versus Dimensity 9400, is a doppelganger of the Find X8 Pro minus that 6x telephoto. Right. And yes, you can zoom in even further with the Find X8 Pro, but overall, the experience, the software, everything is very similar. The battery sizes are the same charging speed, same chassis, same beautiful 4500 nit ultra bright display. Like, the software is also so fast and snappy. Like, I am really impressed with, like, coming from Pixel's okay. It's never been the fastest. Samsung's okay. It's never been the fastest. Chip. Apple is fast. If you use an iPhone, especially like a modern iPhone 15, 16, right, like, wow, it flies. And I feel that on the OnePlus. I feel that, oh my God, like, it's telepathic. It's almost anticipating what I'm going to do next. And it just keeps going. And that, for some people, I totally understand if you want that instead of the Pixel experience, like, because you're willing to drop the call features for that. And that's what I'm saying. Like, why is this phone not getting more love? And I can also understand it's the early beginning of 2025. We're going to get the S25 series. We're going to get more phones coming, So you can't be too crazy. But at the same time, remember, guys, this phone came out in December 24. It's really last year's phone now.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like they've done a good job. I feel that I'm just surprised at some of the reviews. I feel like there's some biases in these reviews, and these people clearly haven't used the phone enough. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I think, hold on a second. I think it's also easy for mobile reviewers to get jaded. We're always getting bigger, faster, better, all of that. And it trickles down to where we're not thinking about what a consumer who's looking for a phone today and will probably use that phone for at least 2 years is considering, because they're not being inundated with all of these different models, and they're not going to buy another model for another 2 years. Whether they've bought this phone on their own or whether they've done it through their carrier, it doesn't matter. They need this phone to be good enough to get them, through another cycle or two.
Absolutely.
So it's like, but reviewers, we're sitting there going, oh, this has this. Oh, this has this. Oh, wow, look at this. Why doesn't this have this? Well, the phone came out in December, and now we're talking about phones coming out next month. It's like, this amount of time in the tech space can be huge. So yes, this may have, X feature, and this may not have it, but this does this, this, and this. And is that enough for you? So it's like, I don't know. I have to remind myself, and I hope that other reviewers also remind themselves, that there's no reason to get jaded about what we're looking at and to, like, cut things down because they don't have the big new feature. They're still quite good enough often.
I also think it's a value thing, not value for cost, but like looking at the 5 pillars, as Marquez would call them, right? Battery life, performance, you've got camera, you got display, and I can't remember what the last one is, software or something like that.
Software.
The point I'm making is that it's an extremely well-balanced phone. Nothing stands out more than the rest. And usually the camera in OnePlus, and again, I would say before the Open, the cameras on OnePlus were kind of like, that bar was a little lower. It was obviously lower. Yeah. But this time it's not, and last year even, I don't think it was the case either. This is actually a big improvement of the 12.
I feel like the never settle tagline has never been truer.
Yeah.
And for the price?
This, I've got in the case as well here. This is the 13R. I've got the black one. Not very exciting. I would have liked the white one. Spencer. Anyway. He knows I'm messing with him. I've already told him that. But the point I'm making is that, like, this is amazing for $599. And again, it's $100 more than last year, but hey, you're getting 8 Gen 3, which is not an old chip yet. And then you're getting the same display pretty much, just no 2.5D glass. It's got the iPhone slap sides going on. You're getting cameras that are detuned, but they're not bad. They're just, mid-range cameras. But this thing, if you're playing games and you want affordable phone and you don't want to go to like Red Magic or something crazy like that, where the software is going to be super wonky, this is a pretty solid choice. It's missing wireless charging. Obviously, that's a bit of a bummer. But I am very happy with both of these phones. And I feel like OnePlus really nailed it this year more than last year. And I thought last year they nailed it. The 12 and 12R were like, I was kind of bummed we didn't get a, what's it called? A Open 2, right? Last year. But at the same time, when I looked at the lineup, I was like, well, what else do you want? Like the 12 and the 12R are fantastic. Like,
and the Open, if that was the phone that you got when it came out, it still holds up. And who knows? Maybe Open, we get an Open 2. Yeah, I mean, the Open is still a great phone, and it's getting the updates. I've got 15 on it, and it's like I turn it on, don't always use it, turn it on, and I'm like, oh, look, an update. I mean, that to me is important. Like, give me consistent updates. Let me have the latest operating system. Don't mess around with that. And they were a little bit slow with that on the Open to begin with. And then it's like they've just been consistent since. And I really appreciate that. I don't know. OnePlus has just stepped up. I always felt that they were giving you bang for the buck, but I feel like now they're really, really like a competitor. And so many people still don't know about them. That's what's so crazy to me. What kind of phone is that? And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Well, so that's another thing we should be critical of, is that it is not available through carriers. And I think this was a big mistake. I think that somewhere along the way, they lost that T-Mobile partnership, but also even T-Mobile is a problematic one. Not because, I love T-Mobile. I'm a customer. I never would change carriers. I mean, unless I had to move to a place where T-Mobile didn't work. I mean, that's very important geographically.
That's great for you because you're a T-Mobile customer, but I'm an AT&T customer.
No, and I know.
I love my service, but guess what? I didn't get a lot of the features on the OnePlus phones that were T-Mobile
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they'd work with AT&T or work with whatever. But yeah, it's like now I feel like it's, again, more democratized. And it's like, okay, you can't buy it at the carrier store. However, they do offer financing. They do their crazy trade-ins. They do all these things. So it's like, don't lock yourself into a contract just to get a phone. Get the phone you want and go to the carrier you want to use. And so
exactly.
I do agree that it's probably hurting them as far as like brand recognition and as far as, people making an impulse buy when they're in the carrier shop and they need a new phone. They're like, ooh, that's cool. They don't get that experience, but that's where we come in. We're telling you what else is out there.
Yeah. And also, what I was also going to say is that when they were with T-Mobile, it was also a problem, not because like you could buy the unlocked version and you'd get good care. At the time, it would, you'd get generally decent carrier support unless you want Verizon. But now you get good carrier support overall. The thing, though, is that when they were with T-Mobile, even when they had that, like it hurt them to only be on T-Mobile. So what Pixel's done right, and what, of course, Samsung and Apple's done since forever now. But Pixel kind of was in that boat for a while, only had one carrier. And then eventually they're like, we're going to line them all up. And
well, Apple did that too in the beginning. They were AT&T only, correct?
Right. But I'm talking about like in the last, Google's only been like 3 or 4 years now that they've been with all the carriers. It used to be Verizon only for a while.
Right.
But my point is that OnePlus really needs these things in stores. And look, our audiences know better. They read our reviews, they understand unlock, they understand pay own your device, pay full price or whatever, or finance it over time as a separate thing from your plan. But the average person still walks into a Verizon store, and I always use Verizon because they're kind of the pseudotypical normal mobile customer, right? Like they walk in the store and then whatever the whims of the salesperson is that day, you pretty much end up with a Samsung or an iPhone.
And, well, then maybe we need to be telling people go to Best Buy because Best Buy has other phones.
Exactly. So you end up with an iPhone or a Samsung. Maybe you end up with a Pixel if you're lucky. Yeah. Maybe a Moto Razr.
Maybe a Motorola. Yeah.
But why isn't OnePlus is losing an opportunity there? I feel, especially now that these phones are not like just performance-oriented Apex type devices. There was a time when they weren't as balanced. The cameras wasn't good. It's really about performance, or fast charging. And now everything is solid. You got the IP rating, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, this is where you want to be in carrier stores. So I don't know what they can do about that. But even though I personally don't care, and I would always buy my phone unlocked full price, like I do with my iPhones, which is the only phones I buy anymore because Apple doesn't hook me up. I think.
Listen to you.
I know. It's such a problem. So difficult in my life. Stephanie, if you're listening, I know you're on maternity
leave. Playing my
tiny
little violin. I'm kidding.
Oh, I know. I mean, we all have some compromises to make. But look, these phones are great. I think that they deserve a lot more love than they got somehow. And I think a lot of it was CES. A lot of it was rushed reviews where people didn't really actually try out the things in detail and kind of went with their previous assumptions from OnePlus. And some of them, I think, I feel my review was very, very, honest.
I enjoyed your review.
Thank you. Check it out on Hot Hardware. Hot Hardware is a little geeky, so there's a whole bunch of benchmarks. You can skip all that crap if you don't care, because I always run them, and it's always a lot of work to do all of that and the graphs and everything. And I know that most of you will have your eyes glaze over. All phones are fast now, and if you're a gamer, you're gonna get a gaming phone, or you're going to get a flagship. And any flagship's going to play games really well, especially the ones with Qualcomm chips and MediaTek chips. The Pixel is a whole different story. But, it's still okay for gaming, just not maybe as okay. Anyway, so let's move on to the rest of the stuff.
We got on a tangent, didn't we?
Oh, but that's the whole point of the show. Okay, you know what's amazing? Theo and I did not get sick at CS in any way, shape, or form. It's unbelievable.
Neither did Caleb and I. I'm like, the CES gods were smiling on us.
I think so. So let's talk about some of the news we have, because there's a bunch of stuff. Because, I skipped a lot of it for CES last week, obviously.
Catch up.
So let's see. We've got a bunch of new phones coming out from China, which is kind of cool. Some of them are actually global now, which is why I put them in here. And then, let's stay in the BBK group for a second. And talk about the Realmes, because the Realme 14 Pro and 14 Pro Plus are now global. And so this is the thing about the Realmes. These particular phones are essentially like $300-ish camera phones. So take everything you love about OnePlus 13, not 13R, and just lower the performance of the chipset, remove wireless charging, and cut the price basically in half and give us the same cameras, but with a Hasselblad branding. That's basically what the Realme numbered Pro series is. So it's always, last year was 13. They actually did 2 last year, 13 and 12. It's like how Reno series from Oppo is like, there's one every 6 months. It's the same with the Realme numbered phones, numbered Pro.
Right.
And there's always a Pro and a Pro Plus. I think I have a Pro Plus coming. And the cool thing about the Pro Plus is that the back glass changes color based on temperature of the ambient.
That is cool.
So in hot, it's white. You put it in the fridge because you'd have to be in like Sweden or something to experience the difference. But within a few seconds of being in a colder temperature, the back starts showing it's a marble kind of finish, and it starts showing like blue streaks in the marble. It's really kind of interesting.
That is
that's
cool.
a gimmick. What is cool?
It is a gimmick because you'll probably have it in a case. But
exactly. What is cool is the camera system. First of all, you got a nice, big display, 120 hertz, 1080p. It's got that quad, 2.5D thing going on. So the BBK group, the Oppo, Realme, family resemblance here. They're trying to do what they did with their flagship, which is a GT7 Pro this year, and kind of bring that down at a $300 and something price range. And so the cuts, if you want, are the Snapdragon 7S Gen 3 on the Plus and Dimensity 7300 on the regular, right? No big deal. Those are great chips. You get that nice little temperature back option, 50 megapixel main camera with a large sensor. That's, again, essentially, you look at these camera specs and they're identical to the Find X8 non-Pro. For $320, and you don't have the Hasselblad branding, but you read between the lines. This is basically the same cameras, right?
Right.
So that's pretty great. You get a 50 megapixel, 3x prism telephoto. Does that sound familiar? And I think the only area where they're cutting down a little bit is with the ultra wide. I think that's like maybe slightly less, 8 megapixel. Yeah. And again, the telephoto and the main have OIS, so they're not skimping out on any of these features. And that's why I'm excited about these phones, and I've requested a review in it. Also, 80-watt charging, no messing about. 6,000 milliamp hour battery, no messing about. Just the prices are insane. This is India prices, but wow. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on this? Do you think this is cool? Because I always think it's cool every time they release a new one of these.
I do too. And I will say that Realme always impresses me because their phones are so pretty. I love this pearl white or whatever they're calling it version that they've got. It just looks lovely. And of course, it's probably going to get covered up in a case, but with the gold trim, it's just a nice looking phone. And I love that they're giving such excellent specs for such a great value. I mean, can you imagine in the US being able to buy a really good camera phone for $300? I mean, what's
Yeah.
comparable here?
Nothing really. I mean, you have to go up to
Yeah.
a Pixel 8a basically, and that's starting to be a little more expensive. So
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. And the other thing to point out here is that they often come, these Chinese phones, with a case in the box, like a TPU
Right?
translucent, so you actually could see the back, being pretty, and
This
still
is
protect
true.
your phone.
This is true.
They get yellow after some time. They're not the best cases, but they're perfectly
Right.
fitted, which is really nice because they're manufacturer cases. So there is that. Moving on, because we have a bunch of stuff, and this is
I
kind of
know.
more like the news side of our show. We talked about this a little bit about the OnePlus Open 2 that didn't come out last year, and of course, there's rumors of the OnePlus Open 2 coming soon. That has a doppelganger, obviously, in the Find N5, which would be the Oppo version of it. And this shows us how thin. This is an official teaser from Oppo. It's 4 millimeters thin.
Yeah.
Opened. Insane.
Thinner than a pencil. Yeah.
Like, are you looking forward to this as much as I'm looking forward to this?
Okay. I have mixed feelings about this. Okay. It's like, I don't have an issue with not a thick phone, but like a little bit more body. I mean, I do put my phone in my back pocket a lot of times, and I'm always like, is it gonna bend? You know what I mean? It's like, and usually it's when I'm walking around and stuff, but it's like, I'm mindful to not put a folding phone in my back pocket, which makes me a little nervous about the new Samsung, the Slim. It's like,
Well, we're going to talk about that because that's
we'll get to that.
That's really not that thin, actually.
Yeah, but still, it's like, how thin do we want to go? But yes, okay, it is very cool to have a phone that when it is folded is about the thickness of a regular phone. That's cool. And when you open it up, it's super thin. It just, I don't know. How thin does a phone need to be? And why are we having some kind of like nuclear arms race towards thinness? What is this?
Because China,
oh, okay.
I mean, I don't know. I think they're trying to outdo each other. Have you played with and used the Magic V3 from Honor?
I have not.
Okay, so I borrowed Nick's actually because Honor doesn't hook me up with devices.
But Nick is a great guy.
And Nick is a great guy. And so I've used it and it's uncannily thin. It's like 4 point something open, just a little bigger than what the Oppo's advertising. And when it's closed, it literally is the same thickness as an iPhone. Like it's on like or maybe an iPhone. Probably the Pro Max, but also actually a closer comparison is it's the thickness of the S24 Ultra, which is like what? And I'm just saying, like, once you get used to that, you want that. And if they don't compromise things by not having wireless charging, which they didn't on the original Open and N3, the Fine N3. If they have wireless charging and they have one of those silicon carbon anode batteries that is like, and the rumors are apparently they're going to reach close to 6,000 milliamp hour on the folding phone. And that's what Honor has. They have like a silicon carbon anode battery in there, and it's just great capacity. But given the choice between Honor's software and cameras, although their portrait stuff is amazing, I would definitely go for the OnePlus or the Oppo.
OnePlus,
So this has got me super excited, to be honest.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, folks. I feel like we're going to get this one sooner than we think. And that means more work for us if the OnePlus version comes. We're going to die. Yeah. It's going to be that kind of year.
Yeah, it is.
It was already hard last year, but this year I feel like we're going to really get it. Again, this essentially, I've kind of grouped together all the BBK group, Oppo, Vivo, Realme stuff together here, OnePlus stuff. Next, we've got a bunch of Xiaomi stuff. So I've got the Poco X7 series here. I've had them for a while. Like, I just haven't had time because of CES, but I plan to play with them this weekend. and they've been out like teased for quite a while. Like I swear, you remember how OnePlus used to tease stuff for like weeks on end, and then it came out. This is what Poco's done with this phone. I feel like even if I hadn't received the phones and the detailed spec sheets in advance under embargo, because the embargo lifted during CES, I already knew everything about these phones before they came out. So the X7 series is out, and we can kind of lump the next thing into it a bit, because Redmi, which is another Xiaomi brand, has the Note series every year. And again, the Note series is like, I reviewed a Note once for one of my freelance pubs. I can't remember which one it was, but it is like you get 90% of the flagship Xiaomi experience for half the price. It's unbelievable. They always have like 200 megapixel cameras, beautiful OLED displays. Like, and so here's the kicker, whatever. The Redmi Note 14 Pro and Pro Plus are essentially the same as the Poco X7 series. There's a few minor variations because, as you know, Xiaomi is amazing at part spinning. It's like they're standing in front like this, kind of like apothecary, like old school pharmacy display of parts. And they're like, same chassis, slightly different display, this camera, boop, done. And then they put, HyperOS on it and they ship it. And you look at the spec sheets for these phones and you're like, are these the same phones? Oh, there's a slight variation here. Anyway, so I'm pointing out that also the Note 14 series from Redmi, which, has a Pro and a Pro Plus, are global now as well. So they've been out in China. So what we're getting now is global versions plus the Poco editions of those, essentially. And it's good because if you're in markets outside of China right now, of course, beyond the US and Canada, although Canada does have some of the Chinese phones, you can buy these phones and be very happy. They're very similar to those Realmes we talked about in the terms of that mid-range price point. And so, quickly going through some of these specs. So what's interesting about the Pro is that it has two cameras. It doesn't try to have like a fake extra camera that's 2 megapixels or something like the regular X7 does. And so they're just Dimensity 8400. This is a brand new chip from MediaTek. They announced like, I want to say the first week of January, the last week of December. It's like a slightly detuned 9400, right?
9400, yeah.
And so this has got a nice big AMOLED with 120 hertz, and then it's got 50 megapixel high quality ultra camera, and then
it's got the curved display though. Not a fan.
Yeah, I know you're not a fan. I don't mind personally, but big battery. Apparently, the India version has even bigger 6,500 milliamp hour and 90-watt charging, no wireless, and then on the regular Poco X7. Has Dimensity 7300, again, nothing too shabby here. And we've got a similar display. But actually, you know what? I think looking at them, so the X7 Pro has a flat display, but the X7 has the rounded screen, the curved edges. And that one has an extra camera that does nothing, like the 2 megapixel camera. Yeah. So that makes me slightly mad. Because I thought we were over that. Come on, guys, really? But so still, the main camera is OIS. Still a large battery, 5,100 milliamp hour, 45 watt wired. Not bad. Like, I mean, again, you look at the pricing on these, and you're like, how can they be so cheap, right?
$300, yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
And $350 for the larger memory, sure.
Stay tuned. I'll have a bit more content on these because I'm going to try them out. And then, of course, as I said, the Note is very similar. So the Note Pro series is you look at them, and the Pro Plus is not powered by Dimensity 8400, but Snapdragon 7S Gen 3, right? So there's the part spinning for you, right? And then, but you look at the industrial design, does it not look like the X7? Look at that camera pod. Look at that curved display. Yeah,
totally. Same
now,
parts.
The camera is different, 200 megapixel here.
Right.
And that's exactly what they do. It's like, oh, well, let's pick a bit of this and a bit of that. And then it has the same 8 megapixel ultra wide and the useless 2 megapixel macro. It's like, what are you guys doing? So it's interesting. But yeah, I again, same size battery, 5110. So I think the Note 14 Pro is essentially the Poco X7, but with a slightly different chipset and a slightly different main camera. That's it.
And slightly higher price.
Slightly higher price. So
well,
I have
Redmi,
it too.
Yes.
I have it too. So stay tuned. I'll just do a big Xiaomi dump soon. Xiaomi dump.
Blup. Xiaomi. Blup.
What is your take on Xiaomi and these phones in general? Like the general, vibe of these mid-rangers is you see, other than the curved display you don't like, do you see anything in there that makes you go like, oh?
I feel that they're really hitting a good part of the market because not everybody wants to buy a premium flagship phone, spend $1,000, especially when you're living in a country where $1,000 is worth a lot more than it's worth here.
Like a year's worth of salary or something.
That's what I'm saying. So, okay, 300 is still kind of prohibitive whenever you're in that low of a pay scale. But I just appreciate the fact that they are making these features accessible to everyone. And these are good looking phones. So it's not like you're carrying some ugly black brick, because that's what you could afford. You can get a nice looking phone that has premium style, has premium features, an ugly curved screen, but whatever, that's my preference, but you're looking at it for like $300, as much as $400, versus $1,000. So that's, to me, that adds a lot of value to these phones. And, again, not available in the US, which it's too bad. We're missing out once again.
So what we get in the US at this price point is the Moto G series. And guess what? Just like clockwork, again, during CES, what the hell? Why are you lifting embargoes during CES, folks? Especially US media, US products, I mean. It's like, why? Anyhow, we now have a couple of Moto Gs, Moto G Power. Okay, what I like about these is that vegan leather industrial design that looks much more like the Moto Edge series, they're much more premium. Yeah. I dig it. The thing that I don't like about them immediately is like, oh my God, look at that chin. Did you see that bezel at the bottom and the front? Oh my God. But they've always been like that. These are LCDs. They're 120 hertz. I don't have the specs in front of me on the resolution, but in the past, the Moto G has been a 720p display. So this might have been bumped to 1080. I don't know. But the Moto G Power is definitely 1080. So, they look good. Spec-wise, well, the little one, the G, has a 6.7 inch, not that little really, but it has 50 megapixel main camera, 5,000 milliamp battery, and Dimensity 6300, 30 watt wired charging. The other one, the G Power, is the interesting one. I've requested a reunit of the G Power only because I don't have time to play with them all. That one has a brighter display. It's bigger too at 6.8 inches. It's got OIS on the main camera, 8 megapixel ultra wide, and a macro useless camera. 30 watt wired, 15 watt wireless, cool. And then what's the chip on that? It is, I want to say it's like Qualcomm chip for some reason, but I don't see it anywhere.
I'm not sure about that.
Stay tuned, folks. We'll figure it out eventually.
Well, worth mentioning is the price.
Yes.
The price for the Moto G, right at $200, and then $300 for the G Power. So,
and IP69, do you see that?
IP69.
And by the way, IP69 on the Pocos.
Yeah. I mean, honestly,
right? It's a thing.
Are they thinking we're all going to spray our phones? What is that?
Well,
or is it hot tub use? What are we thinking?
I mean, why wouldn't we?
Right.
Maybe it's a disinfection thing you put in the dishwasher.
Okay, fair.
Right?
But
I mean,
if you have a dishwasher, sure.
Well, or you could just spray it with really hot water. That's what the 69 protects you from. Cover it in soap, spray it with really hot water. You're done.
Or you could just wipe it down and put it inside your UV cleaner. So.
Oh, well, yeah.
I don't know.
Are you more likely to have a dishwasher or an UV cleaner? That's the question.
I have the UV cleaner. And
well, so do I. But like
not
the
got a
average
dishwasher.
person might have a dishwasher, or you don't have a dishwasher. Yeah,
no, I don't. See?
Funny. That is good.
I do have a dishwasher. I married him.
Honor has finally released the Magic 7 series globally. So nothing different from the Magic 7 that came out, late October or announced late October. And so, I'm not going to go into the specs so much. This is just more of a PSA to let you know that if you are in Europe, you can now buy a Magic 7 series phone. And those are pretty damn cool phones if you are into Honor phones. The software is always what gets me a little tripped, but I think spec-wise, camera-wise, these are really solid, and
Yes.
you should check them out. But what's more important, I think, or more exciting to our very tech-savvy early adopter audience is the Magic 7 RSR Porsche design. Again, was announced a while back, but is now available globally. And damn, that thing is insane. Look at it. The specs on this are just like out of this world. I'm looking at them right now. The camera's 180 megapixel periscope telephoto, f over 1.9, 3x optical. That's insane.
Giddy up, yeah.
Like, I think that's the big difference between that and the regular. And of course, 8 Elite, you got a Quad HD OLED that's like, searing 5,000 nits peak brightness. It's just going to burn your eyes.
Right.
You have
and
no
it has
more
an
eyes.
interesting, differently shaped camera module on the back.
Yeah, and it's got that
not
Porsche
quite
design.
stop sign, but it's got, it's got angles. So it's interesting.
And Porsche design RSR, they're always like the super premium Honor phone. I really like them. So yeah, those are now available globally. And so
you'll
check
pay
it out.
for it too.
Oh yeah, 1,050 euros is a lot of money.
Well, the Magic 7 RSR is suggested retail price of 17.99 euros.
Yeah, but I think it's already available for cheaper. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's good because I'm like, that's ugly. 1,800 euros.
I mean, it's Porsche edition RSR.
I know.
Like always,
I know.
it was more. You pay the premium.
Yeah, of course.
All right, now we get some leaks and rumors. So let's go through that real quick. Nothing Phone 3 is leaked, and it's kind of almost a teaser because Carl Pei has actually officially said there's a Phone 3 coming, and it's going to be he said, a landmark smartphone launch set for Q1. So again, we're not going to have a life, Judie. We're screwed. This is it because we love Nothing, and I definitely want to review this phone. So, there's phones like I get to kind of evaluate and get a feel for the market, like that Realme, the Poco, the Redmi, right? Those I'm not going to actually write a review. I'm going to mention them on the podcast. I'm going to do some quick reels and stuff on social, and that's it. But I reviewed the OnePlus 13. I'm going to have to review this. My next phone is probably going to be the S25 Ultra, to be honest with you. In the middle of writing my Find X8 reviews. God knows when I'm going to finish those. But, Nothing, I have a little soft spot for their software and their general vibe and their general marketing and everything. It's like Carl Pei, obviously. So it's like OnePlus used to be. But he's learned from his mistakes, I feel like. It's just a little more refined and polished and whimsical, and the glyph and all that. I could live without it. But the rest of the phone is so not compromised by the additional gimmicky. Right. Which is arguable because I'm used to the glyph. I just dig it. Do you dig it as much as I do?
I think it's interesting. I'm not as thrilled with it maybe as you are, but I'm just happy there's another phone that's available. That's an option.
And it's going to come to the US 100%.
Yes, that's my point. It's like, keep bringing things to the US, give competition, but their prices are generally really fair and their phones are solid, so I'll give them that. I wonder if there'll be a gimmicky back on this one or not. I've only seen front.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, I mean, that kind of seems to be their thing. Let's give it something, whether it's transparent on their earbuds, or a glyph on the back of the phone. They're doing things that make their product stand out, and I do appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm falling in love with their software, like OS. 3 that came out recently is incredibly good. And you should check it out for that alone if you can, because it's like up there with Pixel. It's really good.
Oh, that's
it doesn't have the call features.
Okay.
Somehow, why can't nobody replicate the call features? And before you go nuts out there, listeners, I know because I've been called on this on social media. Excuse me for saying, well, Samsung has some of these call screening features. So does
not
Apple.
exactly.
I'm like, no. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think people understand the depth and the level of incredibly goodness.
Way Google has baked in, a whole thing where you can have a bot basically answer your phone. Who are you? What do you want? before you ever answer the phone, so you can screen things. That is not available anywhere else. And that is the one thing when I'm not on a Pixel phone that I truly miss, being able to like screen my calls, not just have them, automatically go to voicemail because it's not a number that's in my address book like the iPhone will do, or having to use the AT&T I can't even remember what the name of it, Armor, I think, or something, where it'll screen calls for you and let you reverse look up and see who it was and block them if you need to or whatever. It's just so perfectly baked into the operating system on the Pixel that it is hard to quit. And you do miss it when you move to another Android phone.
100%. Absolutely. And that's what I'm trying to explain to people. Now, if you don't take phone calls, you won't care.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't care. But for those, I think a lot of us love it because we're journalists and we get random freaking calls from people we don't want to talk to. But
all day
at the
long.
same time, it could be important. So it's like call screening. I use call screening all the time.
Yes.
And like, sometimes I realize, it's like the henchman of like this company that I'm working for, but not their main PR person calling me.
Right.
So the number is different, but they need to get in touch with me. And so they say, hey, I'm with OnePlus or whatever. And I'm like, oh, you're the henchman. Okay, sorry. Like I'm joking, minion, whatever you
the
call
henchman,
like,
the toady.
Yeah. It's like, my point is, it's like sometimes it's really helpful. And I know it trips some people. They hang up right away or whatever, but you know what? Then it wasn't important. So who cares? Anyway, moving on, we have some rumors and leaks here. So you mentioned the Samsung Galaxy S25 Slim earlier. You called it thin, but yes,
I said slim. I'm going to go with that.
Did you? Okay. I thought you said thin.
I'm rewriting history. Alternate
That's
facts.
fair. Yeah, I agree. Let's just roll with it. What's fun about this is that we now have a comparison like diagram that's leaked of the thicknesses of these phones. So what it looks like is the S25 Slim is going to be an S25 Plus with essentially a thinner chassis and from all accounts, there's other stories related to this one. If you go dig around the internet, of the battery being really small, like 35, 40, 4,000 milliamp hour, which might hurt it. But to me, this is exactly what you shouldn't be doing. Like, I feel like if this is what Samsung's giving us, this is a total fail. Like, I would expect this to be a different phone, like different industrial design. This is an opportunity to recreate the design, change it a bit. Don't make it identical in size to the 25 Plus. Make it, and it's only 6.3 millimeters, 6.4 millimeters, according to the rumors. So that's actually not that thin. And you're going to say, sitting on your phone in the back pocket, like, hear me out for a second here, okay? We have history on this. Do you remember the Moto Z, the one with the mods, magnetic adapters in the back?
Of course.
That phone was 5 millimeter thin. We're talking a decade ago. Now, of course, most people use it with mods, which made it a little thicker and made it structurally a little stronger. So if you sat on it, you didn't break stuff. But I do remember it being very hard to bend. And so I think you can make a phone that's 5 millimeters. And I think that's what Apple's going to do. But I think Samsung should have chased that beast, right? Like they're like 6.3. You're not really applying yourself very much. And unfortunately, because of that slab-sided iPhone-like design that Samsung's been doing for the S series for at least 2 or 3 years now, it's not going to look that thin. Right? Like, what OnePlus is doing on the 13, like by rounding off the top and bottom, that's looking thin.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know. Like, is this enough? Now, if the price point is good, we can't complain. If the battery life still holds up, we can't complain. But I have a feeling that they didn't try as hard as what Apple's going to do. Thoughts on all that?
I am going to agree with you. I feel like if the battery life is suffering just so you can have a slightly thinner phone. I mean, if they're not using like the latest battery tech that maybe some of the Chinese companies are using, whatever it is, for whatever reason, in their thin phone, they're not able to put at least 4,000 milliamps. It's just, I mean, 3,500 feels like 5 years ago.
This is a rumor right now, though. So let's see how we'll see. Because again, silicon carbon, it could be a thing.
And if you put this phone in a case, how much thinner is it actually? I don't know, unless it's like a later case or a, Pitaka or something like that. If they even make it for this model, it's like, if you put any case on it, who cares that it's the Slim? You've just given up battery life. You've just given up maybe some performance. I don't know, whatever they had to do to jam it into a slightly thinner container that's not really all that thin. So compromises But again, this is rumors, so it's possible that it will be better than what we're learning now.
Exactly.
But just on reading this, I'm not impressed.
No, neither am I. And so stay tuned, because Galaxy Unpacked is officially January 22nd next week.
Yes.
And we'll maybe find out about this slim phone in some way or another. I will be there in San Jose, and I will be hopefully getting an Ultra to review. So stay tuned for that.
Fingers
and since we're
crossed for
talking
you.
thin phones, I'm more excited about this one. Like, even though I'm not an iPhone user, is the iPhone 17 Air. Thoughts?
I won't want it. Sorry, I'm a Pro Max girl. But okay,
Look, I am gonna wait and see, because this is the thing. Apple has a lot of technical chops. They're very lazy
Yes.
though. Like, they like to sit on their laurels, and same with Samsung. Like, because Samsung and Apple own the market in this country, in this region, they are not trying hard, and they're not competing with the best, which is the Chinese. And I hate that. And so I'm applauding the fact that they're making a thin phone. But more importantly, what I'm applauding here is that I think they're going to be thinner than 6.3. The rumors are from Bloomberg, from Mark Gurman, is that it's going to be as thin as an iPad Pro.
Right.
Now we're talking 5mm, that magic number I was talking about earlier. And I think for some customers, that's going to be the thing, right? That's going to be the sexiness. It's like the Razor when it came out, the original, like everybody wanted it because it was so thin. It could slice, it's dice. It's a Razor, chop.
Do you feel though that there are that many people who walk into a store and they're like, I must have the thinnest iPhone?
Absolutely.
You think
It's
so?
not you and me. It's not the power users. But even because here's the thing. I don't use an iPhone as my main phone.
Of course.
I use an iPhone to do video. If the camera is good and does video okay, I will probably try it out instead of a Pro. And this is what actually I'm very interested in this phone, is because the other rumors that's been going on for a while, it's not mentioned here in this particular post that I'm linking to, but is that it's going to have a single rear camera that does all the focal lengths.
Interesting.
So how does that work?
That's
got me scratching my head, and that's the innovation I'm talking about. For once, Apple's going outside of their comfort level and doing something unusual. Now, if it's just, we just put a regular camera, there's no zoom, there's no ultra wide, you kind of like, shrug.
Right.
Look at our courage. Like if it's that,
right.
I'll be like, you see my finger? I'm giving it to you. But I have a feeling it's actually going to be different. I don't know if you're familiar with Nubia phones, but Nubia is part of Red Magic ZTE. They have a 35mm equivalent main camera. So most main cameras on phones are 24mm, but they have a 35. So they actually give you like almost portrait for the default 1X. But their telephoto starts at the regular 0.5, and it closes the gap past 24mm all the way to 35. So here's what I think Apple's going to do. They're going to put a 200 megapixel sensor in there, and it's going to be a 0.5 ultra wide with autofocus and OIS. And they're going to be able to go from 0.5 and digitally with AI zoom all the way to about 5x with very little loss in quality through algorithms and science and software, right? Computational photography. And that, Judie, if they pull that off,
that would be impressive.
I'm impressed.
Yes.
And that's why I'm very excited about this compared to the Samsung. Like the Samsung's not even on my radar, to be honest with you at this point.
This is good for people who don't like holes, right? I can't even remember what that phobia is. Some people have really complained about the fact that all these phones have different holes on them, and they're just like, it just gives me anxiety. If there's one hole, hey, there's a segment of the market you just happily thrilled.
And I'm honestly more excited about this phone than any iPhone in recent history.
That's impressive.
And I am very not happy with my 16 Pro. I bought a 16 Pro replacing my 15 Pro Max, and it's not the size. I actually like the size. Theo does a lot of my video work, my producer, and so they like a smaller phone anyway. And battery capacity hasn't really been an issue. Cameras are great, but
why are you not thrilled?
because I feel like it's not an upgrade. Like my 15 Pro Max, other than the camera button, and the camera button I never use. The only thing I use the camera button for is to start the camera by double tapping, which I could do on an Android phone forever by double tapping the power button. So what the F, Apple? The point is, I feel like, normally I don't upgrade my iPhone like for 3 or 4 years, because I have to buy my phones, as I whined about earlier. So basically,
but honestly,
I'm
though, with the iPhone, that's actually kind of a feature. The fact that you don't necessarily have to upgrade it for several years.
Exactly. No, I get
just
that.
want,
but I was so excited
the new chip or whatever.
As a camera person, I'm like, camera button, I need to try this.
Right?
Also, 48 megapixel ultra wide, that's a big improvement, right? So I was like, okay. And then I was like, wah, wah, wah.
Wah, wah.
And I'm like, why did I spend the money? I mean, I traded in my old one. I got a good value for it, but
Well, that is the good thing about iPhones too. They always seem to hold their value compared to everything else. So when you do trade in, it helps.
This 17 Air or whatever it's called is going to be like.
Well, then there's a phone, an iPhone with your name on it, waiting for you soon.
Maybe they're going to trick me into upgrading again.
They might.
Judie, tell the world where they can find you on the internet, your social media handle. Talk to them about your diary, all that good stuff, will you?
So geardiary.com, and my social media handle is pretty much Gear Diary everywhere. We cover everything from phones to the tech that you use every day, the gadgets. I was telling Miriam that my head has been in the consumer electronics headspace for the last few weeks because of CES and all of the things that I saw and the things that I'm trying right now after CES. Want to see something crazy? Like, I didn't even know this was a thing. This is a piece of swag that was given to me at CES. It's a $100 umbrella. Check this out.
I have it. I have it.
You have it? Okay, watch.
The motorized umbrella.
I'm like, what?
It's electric.
It's electric. That is so fun.
I know.
And it's like little things that just kind of bring joy. I'm like, I like gadgets like that. Things that just surprise you and you're like, what? I didn't know I needed that, but I like it.
2 things about that. It's number 1, it's so China. Number 2, it has USB Type-C because of the European Union. And guess what? Every gadget swag I got at CES had USB-C. And I'm so freaking happy about it. It's like joy.
Yes.
And you know where to find me, folks. I'm at Tankgirl. That's TNKGRL on all the socials. And, that means that bad place that you shouldn't be on anymore. Threads, Insta, Blue Sky, please join us in a conversation, Judie and I, there on social if you have comments or questions about the podcast. The podcast lives at mobiletechpodcast.com on all the major podcasting platforms. Please subscribe, tell your friends. There's also, if your app lets you review or rate, just review or rate the show. And then there's a YouTube channel, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. You know how YouTube works. So subscribe, tell your friends, click the bell, comment,
share.
All that good stuff. Share. Exactly. Also, Patreon. I mentioned it earlier. Patreon.com/Tankgirl, Patreon.com/TNKGRL. Bunch of tiers there. $5 a month is kind of the sweet spot, and it gets you a video version in advance every week, a day in advance. Sometimes it's extra content. Sometimes we go longer and I leave stuff in. Like at CES last week, we went longer and I left all the comings and goings and goofy stuff that was happening, bloopers, fun stuff. So please consider supporting me if you can. That would be awesome. So patreon.com/TNKGRL. And I want to thank our sponsor, Mint Mobile. So as you know, I'm constantly reviewing multiple phones, and while that's fun, it also means I'm constantly spending a lot of money for wireless service on multiple SIMs. That's where Mint Mobile comes in, and that's who I'm partnering with for today's podcast. If you also want to save money on your wireless service, switch to Mint Mobile. As tech-savvy early adopters, you've probably heard of Mint Mobile before, but let me quickly tell you how awesome their service is. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed, or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network. They keep costs low because they sell direct to you online. They cut out the retail stores and salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to the same network? In my experience testing phones, Mint Mobile delivers the same data speeds and call quality as the big three for a fraction of the cost. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to their eSIMs, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your home. No more standing around and waiting in line at a big wireless store. You can keep your current device and phone number and easily switch services. And if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a new SIM free of charge. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, lightning fast 5G, and free mobile hotspot. Mint will show you how much data you use each month and recommend plans that save you money. Mint also offers a modern family plan that lets you set up a super affordable family plan with as little as 2 lines. Use my link mintmobile.com/mobiletech to get premium wireless starting for $15 a month. That's mintmobile.com/mobiletech. Stop paying more than you need on your wireless bill and start saving big with Mint Mobile. And I want to thank you, Judie, for taking some time to be with me today for this awesome little marathon of new phones and the OnePlus 13 awesomeness.
Miriam, it's so much fun always to talk to you. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
I really appreciate that you came, and I will have you on again. And we will have another podcast next week, folks. So stay tuned for that. Until then, cheers, everybody.